Hey guys! In this video I'm going to be showing you how to make DEINO from Pokemon in plush form. So I don't have him with me at the moment because I actually gave him to my sister for Christmas. He was my sister's Christmas present, so I was kind of trying to do the video all in secret, but she was really happy with it in the end. I hope you find this tutorial helpful and thank you very much for watching. I hope you all had good Christmases yourself.
So basically I start off with these templates. I basically drew them on what I think DEINO looks like using like a reference picture. I sort of just sketched them out. Also put the sizes and the pictures of the pattern in this video that you can try and copy yourself. I do not sell my patterns or have downloadable templates of them, unfortunately. I might add some to my Patreon in the future for different plushies. I've marked out how many of you need of the sort of the templates on the actual templates. I cut out the pieces by pinning the paper patterns to the fabric. Once I've cut out one piece, I use that piece as it's more flexible basically. Make sure that once you've cut out one piece, you flip it over so that the soft sides are facing down, so that way your patterns will match up when you come to sewing them together. Once you have all the pieces, you can start to pin the body together. What you do is you get the big sort of long piece with triangles at both ends and make sure that everything is pinned soft side together so that when you sew along, you turn it inside out, the soft side be on the outside. So you basically pin like the middle of this piece to the middle of the leg base bit. So setting aside the belly piece and the side of the body piece, I'm going to go straight to the feet first, and if you get your 4 pieces that you've got for the bottom of the feet and your 4 pieces that are just the odd feet on their own, so once you've done that, I'm just going to sew the basic underneath of the body together to the side templates, just so that I have that in place. So just sew along where I've pinned it there on both sides. So now here comes the tricky part, which is sewing the other piece that you've got for each leg that's separate with the base already attached to it, sewing it to the side piece that you've now attached to the under of the body. So what I do is, again, soft side down, get the other leg template that you have and pin that soft side down to the leg that's already attached to the side of the body and the under of the belly, and then get the other piece of the foot that isn't attached to the under of the foot and make sure that it's pinned down the side of the underfoot and not sort of to the other piece, otherwise you won't have a bottom of the foot, if that makes sense. So there's going to be a little bit of a gap between the 2 pieces, but then that's the only sort of bit that will have a gap, so you need to sew the 2 sides down flat on either side of the sort of the leg going upwards. So it's just the foot bit that you need to be careful for. But just make sure that you sew everything together, and if you get any sort of holes in it, you can always go back with hand sewing or go back with the machine. So once you've sewn on all the legs, you should just literally have a gap at the top of the legs where they're not attached to the other part of the body. So this is where I start to pin the rest of the body, the underbody that you left open earlier. So I basically pin just up the sides all the way up the template that hasn't been sewn yet, and for the leg fold, you need to fold the leg sort of outwards to pin it soft side down to the underbody piece, so that you just need to be careful not to sew it flat down so that you can't stuff it. And then I also sew the top of the two side pieces. I sew them together at the top, and I sew all around those and just leave a small hole at the top of the body where the neck will go, so that I can turn it inside out and stuff it there. Okay, so now we move on to sewing the head pieces together. Get the side of the head pattern and just pin it all the way round one of the side patterns that we've got for Dino's head. What I'm doing here is I'm literally just sort of sewing this tail template pattern I had for spikes coming out, but when I actually turned it inside out, the spikes were just non-existent. They just disappeared. So basically what I did was you just need to sew like two pieces together, and I end up cutting into it later. So when I get to that bit, I'll explain a bit more detail what I'm doing. So I suppose kind of really ignore this part, but I suppose it's the same kind of method of making a tail, I suppose. It's just the spikes didn't work, so that's probably why I'm put in the video, but yeah, I'll explain more detail what I do to it later. So for the neck, I just have a long strip piece, and I literally just fold the piece over and sew the end together. It turned out a bit wide for me, this pattern, so I basically, because it's just a strip, you can just keep moving down the fabric and turn it inside out to the size that you're happy with, but you can adjust the size to how you want. You just need to move inwards just to make sort of the width of it smaller, basically. Okay, so now you just turn the body, the tail and the head inside out. Okay, the tail is going to be edited, but the body should now be like ready to stuff, and the head too. So once you've turned the body and the head inside out, it's just time to stuff them. And I use a chopstick to help get all the stuffing into the little corners, like the tips of the feet and all in the little areas, because it's really hard to just do it with your hands because the actual pattern is quite big. So you'll find that when you've stuffed the body of the Dino plush, that his legs like stick out, like kind of like he doesn't even want to stand. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to push the legs more closer towards the body and the underbelly, and you use the ladder stitch to just stitch the sort of inside of the legs down to the underbody. And I show you how to do the ladder stitch in my How to Make a Base plush. If you've not already seen that, I will link that video here now and in the description. But yeah, it's just a really good way to sort of pull the legs inwards so that he can stand better. So now you just pin the stuffed neck onto the body. So just pin over the hole where you've left with the stuffing on show, and just pin that neck down where you would like it, position it how you'd like it, and then just ladder stitch the neck onto the body. So for the mouth, I originally started sewing the mouth together, but I found that it made his mouth look too tightly closed, and I wanted a little bit of an overlap of the kind of the top sort of snout thing that Dino has over the bottom jaw. And so I decided to sort of use fabric glue just to put a little bit of glue in between the fold where you have the two triangle folds for where Dino's mouth is, and you just need to hold that there for a good long time to make sure that that all sticks down nicely. It's a little bit difficult to put the glue on the minke, so you need to be really careful with it and use like a small end of a paintbrush to apply the glue, and don't just put loads on because it will just come falling out his mouth and then you'll have it all stuck over your fabric and you won't be able to get it off. Whilst the mouth is gluing, you can move on to the grey kind of fur Dino has around his neck, and I sort of draw on the grey fabric that I have here with a pencil, just the circle around the neck, so that I know that I can slot that around the neck, the size for that. And then around that I will just cut out spikes so that you have an all-round piece that you can just basically hook around his neck. And then I will just hook that around his neck and I will sort of sew that to the neck, and then I will glue down areas of the different spikes. Once your head is dried, you can pin that to the neck. Just make sure that you pin it as evenly as possible, or depending on how you want the Dino head to fit. And again, you just ladder stitch the head onto the neck. Okay, so as you can see, the tail come out pretty rubbish. So what I'm doing is I just cut like straight into the fabric, longer triangles I suppose, and less of them, so that basically you can get more of a defined point. And once I've cut into them, I just turn it back out so that the non-soft side is out on show, and I will just sort of hand stitch this using the running stitch, the new cuts that I've created, and then turn that back inside out and then restuff it, and you should have better defined spikes for his tail. And once you've stuffed this tail, you can then just ladder stitch it onto the dino body. So this was the hardest part for me to do for this dino plush, because I had to make the grey bit for his face covering his eyes go sort of around his head and make a pattern that would fit the spikes in the right place and curve around his head and just all look sort of not rubbish and all the fabric just not bunching up. But I finally came to this sort of cut template, which I will actually put the sizes in for you, because telling you to like, oh yeah, make all the fringe and stuff yourself is just really difficult, because I found it really difficult. So I'll put the sizes for the head fur, or if it were template for this here. And then basically what I do is I just sort of sew, there's a sort of a triangle dart at the bottom of this piece, and you just sew that together, because that is sort of like, it makes it round to cup the back of the head basically. So once I've sewn that together, I can then sort of cup it onto the head and start pinning it down in place for where I want it. And basically, once you've pinned everything down, you just start to use fabric glue to glue it down. I do ladder stitch the bottom of the grey bit to the neck where that sort of ends, but that's the only place where I actually ladder stitch. The rest of it are like the spikes I glue down, and any kind of overlapping of the different spikes I do glue down. So once you've done the fringe, you want to do the little nose that you can just see poking out underneath Dino's hair. So I've got some thicker black thread, but ordinary black thread will work, and you just keep repetitively sewing in the same place, 2 even little stitches either side for his nose. If you make a mistake, you can add some pen or just like a fine liner I used just to cover up the gaps where you missed with the thread, maybe just to make the nose look a little bit more bolder and a little bit more so it stand out from the actual fur fabric. For the spike on top of Dino's head, I make a cone shape, which will be able to go into a point. Now, I haven't used a template for this, I just go by eye on how big I think the spike should be, how long it should be, how wide it should be. But I made it pretty wide, and it's sort of rounded off at the bottom, and it's got to be equal both sides so that you can sew just the 2 sides of the cone together, and then you can turn it inside out and that will make a nice point. And then once I've done that, I stuff it and I ladder stitch it to the top of the head where you think it looks the best. And finally, the last thing to do now is the little pink dots on his fur, and I just cut out these little kind of triangle-y shapes just using felt, and then I just glued them. Once I've done that, my Dino plush is done. I really hope this tutorial did help you in some way. I'm used to making like human plushies and stuff, so it's really a big challenge for me. I mean, Papyrus was a bit of a challenge, and Papyrus will be coming soon because now I have more fabrics for him, so he should be on his way soon. But I really enjoy like these challenges and making new plushies, and I will be definitely making more Pokemon plushies in the future because Dino was just really fun to do. So I hope you liked this tutorial, and feel free to ask me any questions if you need any help with anything, because I might not have been clear in some parts.